Watch us be red pilled after we watch this documentary all the way through. We're gonna
We're
be
like, oh my God, Dinesh!
Oh my God.
If you consider the brazenness of this, right? This is the middle of the day. There's people sitting there watching you cheat.
Bro, do you not know how social media works?
Given that our show is called the High Epoch Times, we're going to check out an Epoch TV special.
Fraud was used in the 2020 presidential elections, where alleged paid couriers called Mules were traveling to various nonprofit groups and ballot drop boxes across county lines to stuff illegal ballots.
Yeah, stuff
This
my
is the
ballot,
conclusion
daddy.
of an
So I've stayed relatively quiet on the issue, at least for the last year or so, until I came across the information that was being collected by an election intelligence group called True the Vote.
Is this like the equivalent of VAERS?
Now, explain this to me. So you were kind of like not fully sold on the election fraud stuff. Maybe hearing information and saying, oh, maybe, but...
I love this, like, you didn't come into this being like, it was fraud. You're just a casual man, interpreting facts and learning things as he goes.
Fast forward to several months ago, Catherine Engelbrecht and her partner Greg Phillips came to our house, and they started showing us all this stuff about geo-tracking, which I found really fascinating. So geo-tracking is tracking the movement of your cell phone. Our cell phones have inside of them apps, and the apps convey information that allow our location to be pegged in a given moment of time.
What does geolocation have to do with election fraud?
I think that he's going to use that the geolocation is how we can prove that there's mules. We know that people's cell phones went from Dropbox to Dropbox.
So we know that Trump voters are more likely to vote the day of in person. We also know that Biden voters at the time of COVID are more likely to vote 2 weeks ahead of time.
Yeah.
What are you doing over there?
Updating my weed order.
Oh, okay.
So what True the Vote did is they bought this massive body of cell
Love it when they do that sound effect. The electronic, we're zooming in like on the geo. I think that's just a really nice touch that they added in there because it's just for sci-fi nerds. It's not actually doing anything for, you don't need it.
Yeah, it's unnecessary.
It's theatrics.
phone data in the swing states in the crucial days leading up to the election, October 1, 2020 through election day. And then they sorted through that. They ran a kind of a search algorithm looking for mules. A mule is a professional paid operative dropping off illegal votes who went to 10 or more drop boxes.
Wait, 10 or more drop boxes, you're saying? In other words, they drop votes off at one, go to another, up to 10, you're saying?
I'm saying there's a lot here. The reason for the 10 is you think, well, if you want to drop in illegal votes, why don't you go to one, drop in 300 votes, and you're done for the day? Well, the answer is the next day an election worker will open that drop box. They have to fill out a document listing how many ballots were in that drop box. Well, if every other drop box has, 140 votes and there's 800 votes in this drop box.
Dinesh D'Souza is taken so not seriously at this point that not even Tucker Carlson will have him on the show. And get this, it's even worse than that. He's cut from Newsmax, the most fucking pro-Trumpenstein network there is. Correct.
So the mules are instructed to do 3 votes over here, 5 votes over there, 10 votes over here. They spread it around so as not...
How much are these mules getting paid? Driving from one place, dropping in 3, dropping in 4 here, dropping... That is so tedious and time consuming.
And in order to avoid mistakes, I mean, it's possible someone went to one drop box and they sort of had to stop and tie their shoelace at the next drop box. So you want to set a pretty high bar, and that way you can be sure there's no innocent reason to go to 10 drop boxes. And by the way, a lot of this is occurring like at the dead of night between like 1 a.m. and 3 a.m. in the morning. So it's clearly some sort of nefarious activity. And then, of course, what seals the deal and what made this movie so powerful, and I got the idea of putting this into a film, is when True the Vote began to show me surveillance video that they had obtained from the states themselves, official surveillance video, which kind of catches the...
Wow. Do you like how they expand it? They're like thousands of videos.
Watch us be red pilled after we watch this documentary all the way through. We're gonna
We're
be
like, oh my God, Dinesh.
QAnon is real.
It's so real.
It's not Ron Watkins from Arizona running for Congress.
Oh my God, I'm going to only wear lemon-colored polos for the rest of my life.
A lot of these companies sell that data, and people may not know you can actually buy it. And part of that data from some of these apps is like geo-tracking, where it does actually show the movement of your phone. Anybody can actually go and purchase this. So this is the data you're talking about. How much data are you talking about? Like, how many phones did they buy of this data where they could actually look at this geo-tracking?
So Truth or Vote has the largest store of election data in the world. They bought 10 trillion pings. 10 trillion pings. And yet those 10 trillion pings were concentrated in only 5 areas. Between left-wing activist organizations deeply embedded in these urban areas, that's where the mules get the votes. So the mules don't come up with their own votes. They stop by at the left-wing organizations, they collect a batch or a satchel of votes, then like the mailman, they go on a route.
Would you give me an election fraud?
What? Oh, not in my county.
Sorry, I was really high.
And they drop off the votes here, there, and there. And all of this can be seen in geo-tracking. And like you say, it's fascinating. The CIA used geo-tracking to catch bin Laden. The FBI used it to arrest January 6 defendants. It's used by law enforcement every day. When you go into a mall and you get a notification, there's a special at this store. How do they know you're there? Geo-tracking.
I think Dinesh is an intellectual version of Alex Jones.
Yeah, I think in the same sense that they're taking a kernel of truth and using it to plant the seed of doubt into this weird conspiracy tree.
And what you see is you see mules, and they're typically shrouded in hoodies. They look to the left and right to make sure they're not being observed. They run up to the drop box. Now,
first rule of doing anything bad and illegal:
don't act suspicious.
Don't act suspicious. You have to act like you own that. The idea that they're all wearing hoodies and they're going, oh no, I'm being a baddie and I'm dropping the ballots. Yeah. Come the fuck on.
And the other interesting little detail is these mules taking photos of the ballots going into the drop box. In other words, not a selfie. They're not, I voted, not that kind of thing. They have to show proof that they were there and that they delivered the fraudulent votes. That's how they get paid, apparently. So all of this is on video, and it's so fascinating to see. It's almost mesmerizing.
Dinesh, I want to talk about these organizations that actually did this. But I mean, first of all, you know, your documentary is called 2,000 Mules. I mean, a lot of people would say, can 2,000 people change the outcome of the elections? Was, based on the numbers you're looking at, was this enough to change the outcome of the election?
It was, absolutely. And we do a very rigorous math in the movie. I mean, I'll just do a crude math right here, because if you have 2,000 mules stopping at an average of 40 or so drop boxes, dropping an average of 5 ballots per drop, right there you're talking about a minimum of 400,000 illegal votes. Now think about it. Georgia was decided by 12,000 votes, Arizona about 11,000, small margins in Wisconsin, a little bigger margin in Michigan and Pennsylvania. But in Pennsylvania, there were 1,100 mules stopping at close to 50 drop boxes apiece. So you just do the math. You're going to come up with 250,000 or so illegal votes in Pennsylvania, much bigger than the margin.
Are you fucking kidding me? 250,000 fake votes? Is that what he's saying?
Yeah. Where's this?
Did I hear that right? Like, I know I'm like deaf in one ear right now.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
Got to make sure that, like, in good faith, I heard that right.
Yeah.
He's making the claim that 250,000 votes were fraudulently, like, added to the system. What?
It's a pretty wild fucking claim. That's all I gotta say.
That's a wild claim.
If you subtract the fraud from the Biden column, you begin to see Biden states moving into the Trump camp.
Well, did Trump actually win the election then?
I think he did. And you have to inject a little bit of common sense, because I want to be honest about what you can and can't show.
You know what Dinesh reminds me of? Like that kid on the playground where you're playing, they're losing. And they're losing at it. And then they're like, well, I have a special shield that deflects your laser and it actually melts you. And you're like, okay, well, you didn't have that shield when we started the game. You're just making up anything you can now because you don't want to lose. You're out.
And baby Dinesh is like, okay, I'm going to destroy you. I'm going to fucking ruin your life.
A number of the mules are Antifa BLM types. Those are the sort of thugs who are being hired to do this. It doesn't take a
oh my
genius.
God, pause. Saying thugs, and you just see like LGBTQ flags and people like peacefully protesting and marching like
thugs. If you're not wearing a buttery yellow fucking polo shirt, he's like, I don't know, man. You could be a fucking thug.
Little bit of common sense, you realize these aren't Trump or Republican votes. This is the Democrats doing what they've been doing since the 19th century. Election fraud, except that they saw an opportunity to ramp it up to an unprecedented degree in 2020 because of the new rules made possible by COVID.
I mean, is that illegal? Because we know that ballot stuffing is, legal or ballot harvesting is illegal in some areas. I mean, is this illegal, what you found?
Not only is 100% illegal in all the 50 states, and let me explain. There's an important distinction to be made between vote harvesting, which is permitted under certain conditions in some states, and ballot trafficking, which is permitted in no state. The simple fact is that when you pay mules to deliver ballots,
I just burned a hole through my pants. I just burned my crotch and burned a hole through my pants.
I'm like, show me who hurt you. Was it
It's
the
a
weed
big, ugly
cigarette?
hole. I ruined my pants. My perfectly good pants. I ruined them.
Are they good ones? Are they one of the favorite pairs?
They're my very favorite pair.
R.I.P.
There's an article from the Daily Beast that's the title is Dinesh D'Souza is Q, but for book reading Republicans.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Yeah, it's like for Republicans that are like, I read books.
I'm gonna get a snack
Uh-huh.
so that we can get into this 2000 Mules movie.
I love this footage they have of people in hoodies. Also, I love all of the angles that they just showed you because that's not security footage.
This is a redramatization.
Yeah, it's a redramatization. It's not.
I'm aware.
Did you not remember earlier that D'Souza made claims that they have actual footage?
Okay, well, this ain't it.
All right, welcome back. This is CNN special.
I'll be right back.
5 minutes later.
I wasn't able to finish my transaction actually. So I'm still mid doing my transaction here.
20 minutes later.
That was the biggest waste of my fucking life.
So you didn't even get the weed after all that?
No.
Did you tell them that you were live streaming?
Yeah.
And what did they say?
I told her to connect to the Wi-Fi 3 times. And I was like, here's the Wi-Fi. And she kept on being like, I don't know how to do that. And I'm like, no, just like put the Wi-Fi on your phone.
So you're saying after 20 minutes she refused to do that, to give you your weed?
Yeah, she was like, I she's like, my phone has service. My phone has service. And I'm like, I'm live streaming. I'd like to go back. And then she's like, do you just have like cash?
Hey,
and I'm like,
hold on a second. In this situation, because I've been in this situation many times, you just say, can I take your phone? I'll fix it for you.
I guess I was uncomfortable asking to have somebody to hand me their phone.
I feel bad for you.
Thank you.
Because you watched the interview, it covered most of what they're talking about. So you're in the clear.
Beautiful.
Philadelphia alone, we've identified more than 1,100 mules.
Come the fuck on, man. Just in the city of Philly?
Let's talk about some of the videos.
So we're going to show you a couple different ones. This particular individual we have in a number of different locations at a number of different times. He's actually a mule.
This is the official surveillance video of Georgia.
Absolutely.
And so as the person pulls up, they don't even bother parking. Of course, in the middle of the night, so why would they? He gets out, approaches the box. When people walk up with intention to cheat, they look around, they basically walk fairly quickly, they try to stuff them in, they try to get out of there. In this case, he drops a few on the ground, pick them up, stuff them into the box, what it looks like.
What do you think of that?
I don't know. It looks like somebody dropping off ballots in the middle of the night. Does it look sketchy to you? I don't really...
Estimate, or even roughly, how many ballots are being tossed into a box at a given time?
It might be 3 or 5 or 6 or 10 or something like that.
The idea is to stay under the radar. And as Greg said, the number is, 3, 5, 10.
3, 5, 10, 100, 300, 3,000,
Yeah, how are they getting to 250,000 votes if everybody's just casually dropping in 3 to 5 votes?
They're saying just in Philly, it's 250,000 votes that were fraudulent.
Yeah, exactly.
/ 1,100 mules just in Philadelphia.
Let's look at another one.
Yeah, let's take a look at...
Interesting thing about this person is the device seems to live in South Carolina. So this person isn't even from Georgia.
The drop box. She never looks at the trash can, right?
She's looking the other way.
But the other thing she has is she has gloves on.
Yeah, because it's COVID times. Right. There's a lot of people that were wearing gloves during COVID time. She also has a mask on, doesn't she?
These surgical gloves only appeared from December 23rd forward in the runoff. So we didn't see a lot of them previous to December 23rd. And we couldn't figure out why. And then it just dawned on us, well, on December 22nd, there was an indictment handed down in Arizona for people that had stuffed ballots.
So nobody before that was using gloves is what they're trying to say. And then all of a sudden, everybody was using gloves then. But wasn't there another one where people weren't wearing, that guy wasn't wearing gloves when the pig parker?
Next.
What you're going to see is he approaches the drop box on his bike. He also has a backpack on. Pulled the ballots out of his backpack.
Taking his time.
Taking his time, digging around, looking for some ballots. Finally gets that, pulls them out. Okay, now I'm set. And he'll put them in. But you also see him get sort of frustrated as he starts to leave, because guess what? At this point, they had started requiring the mules, apparently, to take pictures of the stuffing of the ballots. It appears that that's how they get paid. So they take a picture, stuff it in, they take a picture, not a selfie, but a picture of the actual ballot going in. But this guy gets frustrated, so he actually has to park his bike, get off.
So if you were there just casting your own ballot, what reason in the world would you have to come back and take a picture of the box?
It's the same reason why people wear the sticker, the I voted sticker. It's like, I did the thing. Also, they're saying that this person needs to take photo evidence to prove that they stuffed the box. That person didn't take photos of them stuffing the box.
This is like flat earth theory where you work backwards from your conclusion.
If you consider the brazenness of this, right? This is the middle of the day. There's people sitting there watching you cheat.
Bro, do you not know how social media works? We live in a world and a society where we take pictures of us eating, of us, everything that we're about to do. Like, here's the joint I'm about to smoke. Here's what I'm eating. Like, somebody taking a photo of them putting their ballot in, to me, reads as somebody going to post that on social media being like, go out there and vote. I did my voting today.
Was the magnitude of vote trafficking in these key swing states enough to tip the balance?
I love that they gave them bisexual lighting.
Presidential election. Let's first narrow in on just our 2,000 mules. Their average number of Dropbox visits.
That was funny.
38.
That was really
Their average
funny.
number of illegal ballots deposited per visit, 5. That's 380,000 illegal votes. But was this sufficient to put Biden in the White House? To answer that question,
come on,
we
man.
must look at each key state.
380,000 illegal votes? You really
mules.
want me to believe that?
Just do the math, all right? The facts are here. Do the math.
Okay, if this was true, why isn't Mr. Mike Cyber Symposium Lindell, why isn't he privy to this information? He's been doing all this research, raging against the machines. We gotta sue the machines.
They can't even decide how the voter fraud happened.
Why didn't they use this information in the 60 court cases that Trump lost? Most of those judges were like fucking appointed by him and are Republicans. Why did they say no? Why isn't Tucker letting Dinesh onto his show?
To widen the search, Greg and his team lowered the criterion from 10 or more to 5 or more drop boxes. This revealed a huge upsurge in the number of mules from 2,000 to 54,000. 54,000 mules.
The people that are actually down to destroy the system, right? That are actively like, fuck this system. Guess what they're not doing? Voter fraud. You know why? Because they already know and believe that the two-party system is bullshit. They don't care about Biden versus Trump. The real lefties that are like, fuck the system aren't doing this. This is not their agenda. When I talk about destroying the system, I'm not talking about some little voter fraud, okay? I'm talking about a complete overhaul where people get their fucking needs met. Ugh.
Now, when we multiply this increased number of mules,
a whole restructuring,
we find election fraud on an astonishing scale. In Wisconsin, 83,500.
Almost a million illegal votes. That's what you're telling me, bro?
That's why Dinesh is not allowed on Tucker, because even Tucker's like, all right, I'm an asshole, but I'm not
much of an asshole.
And I am an idiot, but I'm not that much of an asshole and an idiot.
The Republicans had no idea this was going on during the election.
Trump, to his credit, tweeted out in July
Mail-in ballots are a disaster. And he was attacked so hard by Kemp and Ducey.
To his credit, we're basically witnessing a whole pro-Trump machine, right? Epoch TV, this Dinesh D'Souza film. I'm thinking that maybe Tucker doesn't want to have anything to do with it because he wants to run for president in like 8 years, and he doesn't want to be directly associated with the Trumpenstein organization.
Doesn't want to be too deep. But I mean, he's also... Tucker Carlson is like spicy because he's like pro the insurrection. Like he was saying that it wasn't a terrorist attack, right? Like he's like, our patriots stormed the Capitol for a good reason in protest.
He also advised Trump on Air Force One to not attack Syria, I believe it was, and he listened to him. So Tucker is like an interesting kind of figure in like our ecosystem because he's obviously odious, but he also might have talked Trump out of doing something really bad.
Mail ballot fraud is the easiest and the most common.
This is a turtle off. Fraud. they're having a fucking turtle off, man.
Why is that?
Well, because they're the only kind of ballot that is voted outside the supervision of election officials and outside the observation of poll watchers. Transparency, as you know, is very important in the election process, and there's no one there.
At least the place that they're doing this interview in is like properly decorated.
You realize now Trump has a nerd to say, listen, because you know how Trump is. He doesn't need to explain anything. He says, listen, look, I have a nerd, okay? He made a nerd movie with numbers and stuff. Therefore, look, what I'm saying is valid.
It's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dallas would frequently obtain this report from the Board of Elections looking for the date an absentee ballot was mailed and if it had been returned.
Ginger Eason, who first told me she was hired to pick up ballots, and Kelly Hendricks, who testified she did the same thing.
What would you do with the ballots after you picked them up?
Take them straight to the office in Dublin and hand them over to McCrae. And I don't know what happened to him after that. I know there was stacks of them on his desk.
There was testimony in the case that his staffers were falsely signing as witnesses on those absentee ballots. Because he had done this before, he actually apparently had signatures of voters from prior elections in his offices.
This is like a Nicolas Cage movie at this point.
Yeah.
This is like the National Treasure fucking... It is. It's a very... cockamamie, like wild harebrained, like it's a conspiracy theory. It's not.
And also, do you notice how they basically filmed him just walking around for like 6 hours and then they just spliced that in between as if there's like an adventure happening.
Well, he's searching. At least he's not wearing a fucking polo shirt in this guy. I like the jacket he's wearing, actually.
It kind of reminds me of the first track off Metallica's Saint Anger, Frantic. Keep on searching.
He might have come from. Who could have funded the heist?
Who funded the heist?
I met with Scott Walter, an old colleague of mine at the American Enterprise Institute.
People think of three rivers of money, really, that empty into the gulf of elections. The hard dollars to write a check to a candidate. The second, you hear soft money or dark money. And then there's a third river that people tend to neglect, but Capital Research Center has studied intently, and that is the 501c3 nonprofit money. The kind of charity that you get to take a tax deduction for.
Again, Dinesh went to prison for election fraud.
I think it's hilarious that the man who went to prison for election fraud made the documentary about election fraud.
It's just so weird. He was in prison.
Like, he's not the person to trust. You've already demonstrated that you're not the person to trust when it comes to these things.
And those drop boxes are, most people would think, funded entirely by the states. In other words, the drop boxes in Georgia are funded by the state of Georgia. But that's not entirely the case, is it?
In the 2020 election, there was an unprecedented hundreds of millions of private dollars going into government election.
Okay, we're talking about Georgia. Do you remember when Donald Trump called some Georgian lawmaker, kind of mafioso style, like, hey, we need those 110,000 votes. You gonna give us those votes? Trump maintained falsely that he had won Georgia by, quote, hundreds of thousands of votes, insisting that the certified elections results were wrong. The Trump Raffensperger phone call, that's what it's called on Wikipedia. And yeah, I was right. Georgia Secretary of State.
70 million or so dollars were sent by Mark Zuckerberg and his wife.
We did our part to...
Jesus. Every time I look at Mark Zuckerberg,
Really?
I'm like, that man is an alien. That human suit does not even fit him well.
That was torture, but I had a lot of fun. This Dinesh Spesh that we did. I'm sorry that you weren't able to get high.
The only way that this gets better is if Jesse never has to watch this again and also can smoke all of the weed. TrueTheVote.org. AKA Get Buttons High.
Yeah, getbuttonhigh.org.
Getbuttonhigh.org.
Give me the weed.